So can one exercise solve sciatica? That is the subject of this video. I'm going to answer that question. Well, I can do it quickly actually. The answer is yes, but also no. So let's start with what is sciatica. Sciatica is irritation of the nerve root as it exits the spine. Now, it could be mechanical compression or it could be chemical, i.e. inflammation on the nerve, which causes nerve impulses to be sent off erratically down the leg, and so the sensation that is experienced by the person is pain in the leg, even though there's nothing wrong with their leg, it is just from the back. There are different types of sciatica, but they tend to cause quite similar symptoms. Our main symptoms being we have shooting pain down a leg. Mostly the pain is experienced in the leg or the buttock, but mostly in the leg. Another symptom we can get is sensory changes. And this is where we get like a numb area in a leg, pins and needles, loss of sensations, burning sensations, changes in the sensory information that go up and down the nerve. And also a less common symptom which can happen is weakness in a limb. Now, quite commonly, if it's going to occur, it's going to be a foot drop, which is where the foot won't lift up, it's slapping down on the ground as you walk. Now, it's a sign that there is a little bit more of an extensive compression on the nerve, and so definitely something to get checked out with your doctor if a weakness in a limb is experienced. But these are the sensations that the symptoms that tend to occur with sciatica. So the thing is that they can be caused by different things. And there's two really common reasons which cause sciatica, which I'm going to explain now. So in my opinion, working as a physiotherapist over the last 25 years plus, the two most common things that cause sciatica are one, a disc herniation, and that tends to be in a younger population, or two, a stenosis, a stiffening up of the area, which is also, I think, very, very common. If we start with a spine, we have segments, 12 vertebrae, which form our spine, and in between each vertebrae is an intervertebral disc. Now, there's a gap which occurs between each vertebrae called a foramen, and basically that's where the nerve root comes out, and it is the site of our irritation of the nerve. So there are two key things which tend to irritate the nerve. So if we draw a couple of vertebrae on the board. One vertebrae, two vertebrae. Tends to be right down in that lower back area most commonly. Now in between these two vertebrae are intervertebral discs. So we have a little disc that will fill in. Now the disc could be considered like a fried egg. It has a squashy bit in the middle, which you might consider a little bit like toothpaste, and then a harder outer ring, which then is more bone-like. And so the squashy bit in the middle, if we cut through a vertebrae from the top, so we've sliced through the top of a vertebrae, we've got this inner section, which tends to be this squashy bit for shock absorption, and this outer section, which is a bit harder. When an injury occurs because of maybe strain, you've lifted something, or postural problems, then basically we get an injury to that outer portion of the disc. That inner disc material then pushes outwards to the extreme, and we get a bulging effect around the disc material. It's no longer nicely contained. And so this bulge out here can have an effect on the gap where the nerve comes out. If we've bulged out, and so the nerve comes out here, goes down the leg, and we get these alternate sensations which then basically cause pain to be experienced further down. But all our problem is in this area. Now this is a very common problem, as I say, especially in people who are around 30 to 50 years old, because their discs are made up of basically still lots of nice squashy material inside that disc, and the typical activities that we do at that sort of age. We're becoming a little bit less flexible. There's strains that occur. The disc can get injured. But if we get above 50, particularly into the sort of 60s and 70s category, this scenario becomes less likely. Now, the reason for that is because you lose your disc water content as you age. Now, that's a normal process. We lose the disc water content, which reduces our disc height. So if we get rid of this, I'll show you the second common problem that causes sciatica, and that is more of a stenosis problem. So a stenosis problem, if we get our vertebrae again, but this time we're going to make them a bit closer together because we've lost some height in our disc, which means that our gap has become smaller because our vertebrae are closer together because the disc is smaller. So that means that we're more susceptible to actually pinching the nerve as it exits our gap because it is closer together. The whole spine is compressed down. It's one of the reasons why as we get older, we can lose actually some physical height because multiplied over multiple discs, small degrees of loss of height will add up to a couple of centimeters potentially of height. But it means we're more susceptible to this irritation as a nerve comes out. As I say, it tends to be over 60s with sciatic symptoms would tend to have this pattern. So can one exercise solve sciatica? Well, it depends on what the cause of sciatica is. If it is a disc problem, which is the first thing we looked at, then it's more likely that you get increased pain with bending. So we'll make a note of this. So with a disc, our bending motion tends to result in increased pain. So therefore, one exercise, like a Mackenzie extension exercise, where we lie on our front and we extend our backs up repetitively, the principle being is it helps to just move our disc material away from the nerve, which means it's immediately, and certainly over a number of repetitions, relieving to leg symptoms. However, if we have a stenosis problem, our bending motion actually reduces pain. And so the reason for that is because when we extend backwards, it actually further closes down the gap in an anatomical sense to where the nerve comes out. So we talked about the fact that we've already got narrowing of that area. So if we narrow it even more with a lean back, like a Mackenzie extension, then it will pinch the nerve even more, which results in more pain. However, when we bend, we actually open up the gaps where the nerve comes out. It gives it a bit more freedom and it's usually relieving. So we see this pattern with stenosis problems where walking tends to be really, really uncomfortable, but when we sit down, the pain almost immediately disappears. So if we were to do one exercise, Mackenzie extensions, it would help for somebody with a disc problem and it would hinder and make things worse with somebody with a stenosis problem. So this is really important to notice that when you do a specific exercise that perhaps you've seen on YouTube or you've been told about, that somebody said, I did this exercise and it really helped with my sciatica, is that it really depends on what the problem is. And so you want to always do exercises that reduce your leg symptoms. That is the most important thing. But age is a key thing here because this area, this disc problem, as I say, tends to be in the under 50s, whereas the stenosis problem, the stiffness related problem, tends to be in the over 60s. If you'd like some more help from me, I've got an ebook. It's free. All you need to do is click the link which is in the description or comment below, send me the ebook, and I can send you that free ebook, which is a roadmap to sciatica recovery. And it's just basically something that's going to give you a framework that makes it more likely that you're going to find those solutions which are best for you. So if you want that, that's available for free. Just have a look in the description.